This half hour being brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummels Wharf, online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, best in new inventory. Great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee. And a terrific service department that backs it up every step of the way. Quick lane, inspections, routine, difficult. All at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Always relish and cherish my conversations with Neal Coolong. Sir, welcome.
Feeling is always mutual as well. Thank you as always. It's great to be here.
So the AFC North is in an interesting spot right now, Neal, where the only team that has a legitimate starting quarterback happens to be the Steelers. Rush is now the starter for the moment with Baltimore, with Jackson banged up. Browning's the starter in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow out for a significant period of time. And Joe Flacco at this stage of his career is a backup even though he's starting. And nobody could predict this at the beginning of the season, but what kind of spot does this put the Steelers in right now?
You know, I had to laugh watching the Ravens game on Sunday. You see Jackson leave, and at first I was like, is he actually hurt, or is this just what they're going to say in a blowout game that nothing's going right and they're losing players left and right? He is legitimately injured, and it sounds like he could miss not just this week, but a game or maybe even two after that. With that said, to echo your point, the Steelers might enter their next game, Week 6 against Cleveland, in first place of the AFC North, and the only team that has a legitimate starting quarterback going for them. I guess we probably didn't think Cleveland was going to have one all year, but certainly Burrow and Jackson are in place. You know, you're probably not getting into that group if you're Pittsburgh. But the start, for as I don't even know how to describe it for the Steelers on the field, has been it's been certainly fortunate for them, not to glorify injuries of other players, but as far as beneficial things that have happened, I don't think any team has gotten more of that than Pittsburgh right now, which is also to say Cleveland might not even be the worst team in the division, the way that Cincinnati has looked.
Yes.
Whether that's the result of Joe Burrow's absence or not, if it is, and shame on them. I mean, they're horrible. They played as poorly a game as I've seen them play in a long time the other night against Denver. So you're looking at a 1-3 Ravens team that has legitimately earned a 1-3 record at this point. That's not a fluke. The Chiefs beat the brakes off of them in Kansas City. It's a tough game, but absolutely nothing worked for the Ravens. They had no answer for anything in that game. A tough one at Detroit, again, defensively, kind of a mess. The Buffalo game, they were up by 600 points, I think, in the second half.
Yeah.
Somehow managed to lose that game. The Steelers are the most consistent team. And second would be Cleveland. It's probably not what anybody would expect to see, certainly by this point in the season, but Pittsburgh's not going to apologize for it. A pretty good time for a bye week for them. It kind of gets them a free week for a couple injuries that probably won't last too long, but it would have otherwise made a couple players miss a game. It would be tough for them to play this week. But they're in a decent spot. I'm not going to say the driver's seat until Lamar Jackson is ruled out for the entire season, and Baltimore has absolutely no way of improving a historically bad defense right now. I think they're going to get that ship righted by the end of the season. I think they'll certainly be there at the end. But Pittsburgh has a chance to build up a little bit of a lead and make some noise for themselves. I don't think they are even playing complete football games yet, so they have room to improve as they go. But it's a pretty remarkable situation for them to be in. It's not one that I think anybody expected, but certainly not me.
No, I don't think anybody expected them to be in this spot, but they're there. So what do you like about the Steelers through a month? We'll just start with that part first. What do you like about them?
I have liked what has been a pretty obvious improvement on their offensive line. Now, I will say my attitude toward the offensive line, still young, still building, but really the center point of what this team is going to be, what the team is going to need to be if they're good. Their offensive line is going to have to be dominant and consistent. Didn't start off that way. We saw some mistakes against Minnesota. At the same time, though, they are paving over those potholes a little bit more quickly than they have been. And I'm going back into last season as well. We've talked about this a lot. It doesn't seem like the Steelers are particularly interested in getting off to a hot start, so to speak, as far as their play goes. And I think they've played some opponents that are a lot better than what we saw on the field against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has a way of kind of, deflating their opponent a bit, but Minnesota's a better team than what we saw them play.
Sure.
If they get their regular starting quarterback in there, they don't have, 3 injuries on their offensive line, 2 of them in game. That's a better team than what Pittsburgh saw. But their offensive line, top to bottom, has been stronger drive to drive as the season has gone on. As odd as this is for me to say, we've seen some pretty good play out of Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones is, in my opinion, maybe the worst offensive lineman in all the NFL over the last few seasons. I thought he's played pretty well. There are some lapses here for certain, but Troy Fatanu as well has been kind of hit and miss. We've gotten better play out of both of them as we've gone into these 4 games. Each game they've got, I think, a little bit better than they were, a little bit more consistent, I should say. Jones still has, the gap here and there that kind of, throws his stats off maybe a little bit, but he'll put together a good, solid 10, 12 reps in a row where he looks like a really good player. And that's obviously a great sign. I'm not even trying to sound sarcastic with that. I think Jones certainly has always had the ability to be one of the best in the game, and he's not there yet. But he has put confidence in the eyes of a lot of evaluators, a lot of people that are watching him closely with his future in mind. Where is he going to go? What's he going to be? How much money can he command? He's taken a step toward what he should be these last couple weeks. And with that, I think that you've seen better play, more aggressive play on the line. Not aggressive in terms of Mason McCormick. You don't need much to get him to be more aggressive, but he's playing with more solidity. He's got his feet under him. His balance is a lot better. And they're getting better as a unit. And I think the results, it's easy and quick to praise Kenneth Gainwell, and we should. We ought to. Mm-hmm. I don't think that Jaylen Warren has less of a game against Minnesota with the blocking that he got. He was not hit a yard in the backfield like we've seen for the most part over the last 3 seasons. He's getting to the second level. He's making a move, making a play, and the chains keep going. They had what seemed like a very good offensive game, although statistically maybe not all that great overall, but they were able to run the ball well, consistently at least, maybe not on odd 4th down calls, but they have done pretty well building each and every one of these games. And I think that the team really is going to go as far as this offensive line can take them. And right now, you have to think there are some positive signs. I think you've got something you can work with here.
So now let's flip it to the other part. What gives you pause about this team?
I can feel a lot of Steelers fans throwing things at me through the radio right now. DK Metcalf's explosive plays. In my eyes, there's been 3 of them. All 3 of them have come off noticeable defensive gaffes, whether it was communication or whether it was flipping on the field. He has not made a big play in which the defense didn't abnormally screw up. The touchdown, which ends up being the difference in the game, the touchdown he scored against Minnesota, motion looked like it kind of confused, I forget which safety it was, probably Ivan Pace, coming down. He's supposed to be passed off to the linebacker. The linebacker wasn't with him to get him to flatten out a little bit, catch the ball, and then be able to get upfield. He was able to take that short crosser or skinny post at a very aggressive angle and get upfield and get to the sidelines and become untouchable. If he has to flatten that out a little bit because the coverage is with him, and it wasn't, they both went to the wrong spot, it looked like, he probably doesn't make that play. So things like that are a concern because they really don't have it doesn't seem at this point much intention of even attacking downfield all that much. If it is, it's going to be Calvin Austin. It doesn't sound like Calvin Austin's going to be around for a week or two. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be a problem, I think, after the bye, playing a very good defensive Browns team. They're going to have to find less complicated ways or less, luck-based ways to manufacture splash plays. Like I said, the performance against the Vikings, I think it looks a lot better just because it didn't seem like they were punting all the time. But it wasn't a great offensive game. They were stopped fairly often when you'd hope a team that could really score points would have put a little bit more on them. They had first field goal block in a season and a half, I think. There are issues there for sure. I think offensively, it's the fact that they're going to have to probably go with a little bit of a drought in terms of big play potential here coming up in the next couple games. But they're going to have to find a way to get Metcalf the ball down the field a little bit more regularly than they have, and he's going to have to just rely on skill and ability to make more big plays. I don't know how much you're going to get out of Austin. I haven't heard the severity of what his injury is just yet, but that's a problem if he's not in there. Defensively, they've been playing without most of their secondary. It seems like Ramsey's hurt. Porter's missed, 3 games, most of 4 games to this point. I think they've gotten better in terms of their communication, but one gaffe costs you a lot of points. That clearly happened. That allowed Minnesota to get back in the game. It just seems like their secondary is always a play away from that. And I'm not sure how tight it is there. They've gotten a lot better along the defensive line, but let's see what they do against a more unified group than what we saw against Minnesota. Defensively, I think they're getting to the quarterback, which is good. You're down Alex Highsmith, you're still being able to do it. Nate Herbig's making himself a lot of money. You're happy about that. I'm not sure they have the strength overall in their back seven to really impact the game the way that they're going to have to moving forward. Your defense is going to have to win you games, especially in the fourth quarter. They've been able to do that to this point. I don't know how sustainable it is against some of the better teams they've got coming up on their schedule.
Okay, so now they've got the bye week, which comes at, I think, a pretty good time for them. But then they only play 3 games in the month of October. Cleveland, Cincinnati are 2 of them. I mean, to me, I see opportunity here, left and right, even though I think Cleveland's defense is absolutely exceptional.
Cleveland's defense makes them a difficult team to beat, even if they're a team that might only win 6 games.
Right.
I know how weird that sounds, but we have seen the Browns do plenty of damage to the Steelers' offense for the last couple of years with a very good, very talented, and very well-coached unit, probably the best coached unit in football. We saw them do that against Green Bay. Green Bay's players were so excited about their 2-0 start. They were talking about going undefeated.
Yeah,
and the Browns held them to 10.
Yep.
That's a phenomenal effort on their part. They have the ability to do that against everybody they play. That's a difficult team. Let's see how they do. Coming off the England trip that they're on against they're playing Minnesota this coming weekend.
Right.
Hopefully that's something of an advantage. Hopefully it's something that can slow them down a little bit. But Jim Schwartz knows what Pittsburgh's doing pretty well. So that's not an easy game by any stretch. Cincinnati, at this point now, the exposure that the Burrow injury has created on the team, they are the dangerous wounded animal. Jobs are on the line at this point. They aren't running the ball. I mean, the Steelers look like the 2007 Atlanta Falcons in terms of running the ball with Michael Vick in comparison to what they're doing today. They're not able to get anything going offensively. The pressure is on them. You got to think that they're coming up with answers, and they're going to have something. But on paper, I mean, absolutely, those are 2 winnable games for Pittsburgh. And looking down the line, they should be able to win at least 4 of their divisional games this season, just based on the way everything is falling. But those are must-win games. They're not going to have the margin for error against better teams in the league. So they've got to beat teams that are down the way that Cleveland may or may not be, but Cincinnati right now definitely is. So they don't. The Steelers. I've said this for years. People grossly overrate how good the Steelers are. They always play down to their competition. The Steelers are playing up to their competition or at the level of their competition more often than anything else. Like I said, I don't think Cleveland is a terrible team. They just have a very noticeable quarterback issue. Defensively, they're good enough to win, 45% of their games with a bad quarterback. That's how good that unit is. And if they get things going, it might not be Flacco. It might be Dylan Gabriel by that point. I think we all know he's going to start at some point this season. If they can get something going with a mobile quarterback that nobody's really seen, that's a tough team to play. And that could be the next game they play. Could be Dylan Gabriel's first start. We'll see how that goes this week. But Steelers shouldn't be looking past anybody at this point. Record is, your first 4 games. I don't think that's going to be the tone for the season for everybody. Every team gets paid. They've got guys that want to, get employed next season as well. They're going to put everything they have into breaking losing streaks or breaking slumps. And the Steelers are going to face 2 of those teams in October. So they're not out of the woods by any stretch.
Yeah. Which gives them an interesting. This is an interesting road for them right now. What do you think about the injury trend in the league? Neighbors is out for the year. Hill's out for the year. You've got quarterbacks going down left and right. What kind of concern is there, do you think, in the league about the number of guys that are getting hurt and not just missing a game, but missing significant time?
It's interesting that you say that because there are the significant injuries, and those are really the ones they track a bit more competently. You can find data on that, and you see, God help him, Tyreek Hill is injured. I don't know if you saw that or not, but I strongly recommend you don't if you haven't seen it.
Yep.
Things like that, there are flukes. This is not an injury-free activity. It's going to happen, but anecdotal evidence tends to kind of take over more often, and that's when you get the multiple games but not a season missed. The Vikings lost 2 offensive linemen in the game against Pittsburgh. Brian O'Neal is one of the more underrated players in the league. Probably, in my opinion, was going to do a great job against T.J. Watt. He's a really, really good right tackle. He misses most of that game, but the center, I'm blanking on his name, Ryan Kelly, the guy from the Colts, they brought him in to be their captain, to be their communicator, to really help the young quarterback identify where rush was going to come from, where coverage might be coming from. They need him on the field. He's out possibly for quite a while. He just picked up his second concussion in 4 weeks. These types of injuries destroy teams, and if anything, it's the ones that I'm noticing now are more on the offensive line.
Yes,
because you're seeing, really, another thing that's getting exposed this season is just how bad. I don't want to say it like that. Just how difficult it is to find 2 quality starting tackles to keep them healthy, or to have a third.
Yep.
You have Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater down for the Chargers.
Yep.
Chargers were legitimate, contenders in the AFC. If they've got 2 backup tackles playing for an extended period of time, they're not going to get protection. They don't have protection. They're not going to score points. Right. You don't score points, you're not going to win in the NFL. So right there, their confidence drops considerably. And these injuries, I don't know if it's just anecdotal, because it's not just the season-ending ones. It's not just the MetLife Field turf that they're taking out for the World Cup this summer, I might add. Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Things like that, they do happen. I feel like it's more the MCL injuries, the ones that might not be surgical but are going to keep a guy out for 2-3 weeks. Right. It seems like those are picking up, and those are the great equalizer in the NFL. It just feels like it's one of those years where come mid-season, you're not going to know who the best team is. A lot of teams are going to be at that mid-level, and nobody's eliminated, really, to that point. And a lot of it, I think, is because we're not going to see the ceiling because of the amount of injuries, along offensive lines in particular. If you don't have a good, continuous group of offensive linemen playing week in and week out, or your top drafted guys, your top money guys, are not in there, you don't have the world's greatest backup behind him. You're not able to afford them.
Right.
You know, tackles are rare. They're expensive. Dan Moore got paid a lot of money for a reason. It's because there just aren't very many guys at his age with his starting experience, and that's the market price for him.
Right.
So if you lose somebody like that, you probably didn't pay a backup starter's money to sit there and wait for one of your two guys to get hurt. So you've got somebody that's pretty far below where your starters are, it seems like, or they're inexperienced enough where they can be exploited. And 3-4 plays a game can swing everything. And I think with that, it's thinning out the league. You're seeing teams probably start to value injuries more than anything else. And this gets back to my original point. I don't want to act like Lamar Jackson was faking an injury.
Yeah.
I felt more like maybe John Harbaugh was not playing him because all these guys were getting hurt, and he'll cover for him just to keep him out of harm's way because everyone else was getting hurt. There comes a point where it's like, we can't take any more injuries.
Yeah.
There's nobody left. And I think Baltimore is going to be a shining example of that. Obviously, they're not off to a great start, but they got decimated in their loss to Kansas City. They're going to have a lot of guys that were fringe roster players in training camp playing significant snaps for them. And a lot of that, you have season-ending injuries, and then you have the more mild 1, 2, 3, 4 week types of injuries. I think that's making more of the difference at this point this season.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, back with more in a moment on News Radio 1070 WKOK.